Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of Toward Completeness. My name's Jay Woodford. I just started this podcast. It's been on my mind for a long time. I probably talked about it in the last one, but I'm really trying not to censor how much I've talked about certain things because I think a lot of things need to be said in multiple different ways, in multiple different contexts, at multiple different times in order for it to start to sink in. But just this whole process of quitting alcohol, quitting booze, dealing with the fact that I had an issue with alcohol and putting it out there publicly has been one of the best things that I've ever done. And hearing so much feedback from people about their struggles, how alone they feel, it's basically taken me to a place where I can't not speak about this. I feel like I just feel incredibly compelled to share my process with people, share the things that I've learned, and just do my best to help people know that they're not alone and help people understand that there's not something fundamentally and irreparably messed up about you. Because when you feel like that, when you feel like there's no hope to fixing any of this, then it becomes hopeless. And when you're coming into it, so many people that I talk to, they're in the midst of it and they're wanting to quit. And I remember what that felt like. It felt incredibly scary to have this thing have complete control of you and you not feeling like you're ever going to be able to get out of it. It's a horrifying feeling. And mine, I don't even think was that bad compared to what I know other people are struggling with. It certainly isn't as bad as what I know people are struggling with when it comes to hard drugs like heroin, cocaine, meth, fentanyl. Like that's got to be crazy. So I want to share a lot of the things that I've learned through this process. And it's also a lot about mental health just in general, because ultimately that has been the root thing that I've been trying to get to the bottom of is why did this become an issue in the first place? And what can I do to mitigate it in the future? Because I knew that for me, if I just tried to quit drinking and gritted it out with sheer willpower, I was eventually going to crack. There would be something that would happen that would be bad enough, stressful enough, devastating enough, etc., that would make me go back to booze. I'm just being honest about that. I'm not here to pretend like I'm some fucking... I can't stand the tough guy bullshit, because it's all bullshit is what it is. In the midst of knowing that I do have a ton of emotional and mental strength because of the things that I've been through and the ability to do the things that I do. But I'm not ignorant to the fact that willpower can only take us so far. The point of this episode is I really wanted to share with you guys how incredibly valuable this has been for me in terms of looking at this process, what it's caused me to learn about myself and other people and just life in general, how much it's been a very orientating process, if you understand what I mean. Meaning it's like I'm getting my bearings in a lot of areas in my life where I didn't have my bearings. I was disoriented. And Jordan Peterson helped me understand that. Gabor Mate helped me understand that's a common thing when people struggle with addiction. It's a common thing that's rooted back in early childhood trauma. And the thing that I really want to communicate right now is how grateful I am for this process. I hear a lot of people talk about how they wish that they've wasted all these years with addiction. And I just don't look at it that way. I honestly look at all the shit that I've been through, all the pain, every bit of it, everything. A childhood that I look at with zero regard or affinity in terms of I didn't have a childhood. I lost innocence at a very young age, and I didn't really have a childhood. And part of me, I'm sad about that. I'm not sad about it, but if I think about it and look at it, it would have been nice to have had some semblance of a stable, normal, healthy, nurturing childhood. But along with everything else in my life, that's been the stuff that has been used to guide me to a place where I'm grateful for where I am. I'm grateful for what alcohol did. I'm grateful that I had an issue with alcohol because it was the thing that drove me to figure myself out and helped me dive deep into pain and helped me dive deep into understanding and trying to find answers, because the pain was so much that I had to find it. And without that, maybe I wouldn't have found it. I know I see so many people who don't have that. It's like they're oblivious to the suffering and malevolence that exists in the world. And so when they encounter people like us who have gone through addiction and issues with mental health, they have no concept of it. They don't have the capacity to have empathy for it. I think that's a huge shortcoming for them, and I think that that's unfortunate. And I don't know whether or not that's possible for people to get there apart from massive pain. You know, you see people that have gone through serious shit. You see people that were, you know, monsters, more or less, who fixed their life, and now they're the most amazing, gentle, peaceful, empathetic, loving, incredible people you'll ever meet. And I want to encourage you guys with my intent with this is to encourage you, because when you're coming into this stuff and you're in the darkness, it's so hard to see any good, and it's very hard to not have a bleak, hopeless outlook on things. But I just want you to know that I'm not the only one who's saying this. In all my communication with people who have said, hey, I've been clean for a year or 6 months or 15 years or whatever, and I always ask people, what is the single biggest thing that you would say has been a benefit of this process? And every single one almost unanimously says something along the lines of the ability to find myself, the rediscovering of who I am, and getting to know myself and have peace with myself and peace with my process. So I know how bleak it can feel, and hopeless and despairing and empty and just hopeless. And if anything I can do to impart some hope, because you need that, the self-condemnation doesn't help at all. We all go through this process. If I can recommend one thing to you if you're struggling with alcohol, it'd be go sit down and listen to Gabor Mate. There's 2 talks of his that I listened to, one on London Real with Brian Rose, I've listened to a bunch of his stuff, but these are the 2 that stuck out. And the biggest one probably with Tim Ferriss, the author of 4-Hour Work Week. Tim Ferriss has been through stuff. You know, I think that when we hear these things, the biggest thing that it helped me understand is biggest thing that it did for me is it helped me understand myself. It gave me empathy for my process, helped me understand that no, you don't go and drink because you're a piece of shit, stupid human being. You go and do these things because there's massive amounts of unresolved trauma and shame and suffering that's under the surface that hasn't been processed. And I didn't even know about it. Like I've said numerous times, I never sat there and ruminated about my past, about my childhood, about finding my dad dead at 16. I never ruminated about that. Every single person who's been close to me after that point will say, in some form or another, that I talked about the event of losing my dad at 16 and finding him dead as being a triumphant time, and it was incredibly triumphant. But these things still create trauma. They still have some mastery over you in some way, because you never actually get over that. You just learn how to live with it. You learn how to tell yourself a different story about it and frame it in a different way. That's what all this is about. And I'm 100% convinced that every single one of you, no matter how much of a piece of shit you feel like right now, I'm 100% convinced that if you had peace, you would not function the way that you do. That's just how the human machine works. When we are not at a place of peace, and to the extent that we're not at a place of peace, to the extent that we have suffering under the surface, is the scope to which we are going to function in a place of dysfunction. And we're going to do things that are not healthy, and we're going to do things that are messed up, because just like Brené Brown says, it's easier to inflict pain than it is to deal with pain. But I think that, you know, for me, through this process of quitting drinking, that's been the whole objective for me is I'm quitting. I'm done. I'm done with this controlling my life, and I'm not going back. Doesn't mean that I'll never drink again, although that probably is the case. I don't miss it. I don't want to even take, at this juncture in my life, first of all, I know right now if I went back to alcohol, I'd probably go off the deep end, because I'm processing so much stuff, and there's a lot of things there's a lot of ups and downs to this process. And there are times lately where it's been the thought of, I knew if I drank right now, it would be game over, because I need that, craving that relief. I don't think I'll ever drink again. I don't want to allow that to have that place over me. And just the growth and everything that I've gone through has been the best thing ever. I wouldn't want to compromise it. I just found that alcohol made me dull, and that's a big reason why I drank, was because I still have this issue. I have no capacity to shut off and enjoy the moment. I'm constantly somewhere else in my mind, or a million different places in my mind, and I'm driven as fuck, which is not driven out of a healthy way. I'm starting to understand there's something in there that's not healthy, and alcohol would give me the ability to sit down and basically shut off, and it was like a superficial sense of rest and peace. So I'm saying this to you guys because I want you to understand that I'm 100% convinced, and I think that like Gabor Mate talks about this all the time. The first thing that I ever heard him say was, not every person who is traumatized becomes an addict, but every single addict is somebody who has been traumatized. And trauma doesn't have to be this cataclysmic thing where you see your parents shot and killed, or you experience horribly traumatic, catastrophic things like that. It can be very simple, subtle things as a small child where you were left alone, where you were rejected, where you felt shame and it wasn't processed correctly and you felt that disconnect. Because that's what he says that trauma is. Trauma is a disconnect from yourself. It's a shutting off of the emotions in order to cope and survive through that moment. And that's why so many people who come through addiction and they get back in touch with that selves and get back in touch with themselves and that part of themselves, they allow themselves to feel life again, both the pain and the good, is they say, that's what it is. It's a reconnecting and rediscovering, getting to know myself. And, through consuming a lot of that content and putting this stuff in my mind, Brené Brown, Jordan Peterson, Gabor Mate, the biggest thing that's done for me is it's given me empathy for myself, which has given me empathy for other people, which has made my life more peaceful. And that's what I'm wanting for you, because to the extent, I had somebody ask me the other day about, they were completely berating themselves and they were talking about how they wanted to quit drinking. And I said, I totally get it. I relate to that 100%, but I will tell you this right now, that if you think that you're going to be able to quit drinking, so long as you are condemning the shit out of yourself and inflicting shame upon yourself, you have no fucking chance. Zero chance whatsoever. Because shame is ultimately probably damn near the root cause of why a lot of us suffer with alcohol. It's an attempt to stuff the shame or avoid impending shame if we're wanting to do something creative and constructive, but it's there. I mean, this has been one of the biggest things that I've learned through the process of engaging with Brené Brown's work. I can't recommend it enough. So I just wanted to leave you guys with that, because I'm hopeful. I'm never, ever, ever wanting to put any of this content out there to give people a license to stay stuck. This sure as hell is never an attempt to pull a poor me, woe is me type of thing. This is always with the intent of, I want to help people move forward, and I want to give you some tools that have helped me so that you can move forward too. Because there's no point in staying stuck. If I just had to stay stuck where I was, fuck it, I'd just go drink and be done with it, because it's no point. Life, this whole process, because of the progress and moving forward and learning about myself, learning about other people, learning how this thing works, learning how life works, getting more grounded in certain things that I was not grounded in, that I was unstable, didn't have any stability on. So many times through the pain, I've looked at this and been like, this is such a absolutely incredible process. I'm so grateful for it, in spite of the fact this hurts like hell. It's just been amazing. So I don't take it back one bit. If I could go back and make different choices, I know the moment the choices were made that led me down towards having an issue with alcohol, I wouldn't go back and fix it, because the benefits of this, and I've just found this constantly, consistently through every step of the way in my life, that when you turn things around and you change your actions, all that shit and damage and everything that was done that was used to be destructive or used to destroy you somehow gets used for your good, and far better good than what was intended, that completely outweighs the negative. I remember that when my dad died, just thinking, there's going to be something incredibly good that came from this, and there was. It was the ultimate source of good for me in my life, and so has this process of dealing with quitting drinking. So I just wanted to share that with you as encouragement and to give you some hope, because I'm looking at this from the other side, and I know how it is when you're in it and you're looking at it and it's so overwhelming and it just feels bleak. But when you deal with this and you get past and you dive in, you start to get to know yourself and figure out the why compassionately. Why is this? Why the addiction? Why the pain? Like Gabor Mate says, it'll be the most moving process you'll ever engage in. I promise you that. So if this has been helpful at all, please let me know in the comments. And feel free to connect with me. You can subscribe to the channel, obviously. The podcast links are below. I'm very active on TikTok right now. That link is there. Instagram, Facebook. Would love to connect with you. Would love to hear how this helps. That's the ultimate thing for me. If I never heard from anybody about how much any of my content helps, I wouldn't have much motivation to do it, because this isn't a very fun thing to talk about. There's countless other fun things and more pleasant things to talk about. but I can't not, because I'm seeing and getting the feedback from people of how much this is helping them, so I can't not do this. And the more that you share with me in any way how this has helped you, I just appreciate it. It means a lot to me. It means more to me than anything. And so if you would be so kind to do that, that would mean the world. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to connecting with you. Thanks.